Kepler started a revolution in astronomy in the 1600s. The revolution continues and is now challenging the world. There exist two fundamental forces in the universe with long-distance reach. One is the force of universal gravity. Kepler discovered its laws. The second is the electromagnetic force. Its principles are being discovered now. Kepler has paved the way for this continuing discovery. Our window to a new advanced civilization opened with Johannes Kepler's discoveries in the 1600s, revealing the world-shaking fact that planetary motions in the solar system and the motion of stars in the galaxy are each motivated by a different principle. Kepler discovered the laws by which a gravity-bound system of orbiting planets must necessarily operate in order to exist. In an orbital system, the force of the central gravity, the Sun, must be balanced by the centrifugal force of the orbiting planet. This requirement demands a unique pattern of velocity-to-distance relationships, which is common for all orbital systems by the requirement of the principle involved. Kepler discovered this principle. It was recently discovered that the motions of stars in a galaxy do not reflect the characteristics of the principle of orbital motions. This means that stars do not orbit the galactic center, but are moved by a different force that is expressed in a different manner, reflecting different principles. The motions of stars in a galaxy, however, do reflect the unique principles of the electromagnetic force. This means that the universe is organized by two separate sets of principles, not just one, as it is widely believed. Of these, one reflects the principles of the force of gravity, manifest as the laws of planetary motion that Kepler discovered. The other reflects the principles of the electric force, manifest in the motions of stars in a galaxy, which are opposite in character to what Kepler discovered. In other words, we are looking at two totally different phenomena, fulfilling different purposes. The two corresponding operational systems each fulfill a different purpose, respective of the operational domain. The gravity system operates in the small space of a solar system. The force of gravity doesn't reach farther. It diminishes with the square of the distance. The electric force, which does not diminish with the square of the distance, operates across the vast distances of the galactic and intergalactic space. The two systems interact at a local level where gravity is also effective, where the electric force particles, which also have mass, are attracted by the force of gravity towards a sun or a planet. The end result is revolutionary. It tells us that cosmic space is teeming with vast streams of electric energy, which at the local level powers our sun and is also available for human use. What comes to the foreground here, based on Kepler's discoveries, opens up an entirely new perception of the nature of the sun, the solar system, and the universe. Of course, What comes out of this has vast political repercussions because the discovered truth is not welcome by the masters of empire. Oh yes, the truth be damned. This is the watchword of our modern time. The electrically forced motions in the galactic and cosmic space, which conform with the observed speed-to-distance relationships, are not allowed to be recognized to exist. Instead, the impossible must rule. The impossible, becoming accepted as the truth, creates feeble minds, destroys science, and darkens civilization. This is how empires maintain their existence, which have no natural basis to exist. In this context, modern science has become a paradox. By name, science is a search for the truth. In practice, it has become a denial of the truth. The obvious reason for this paradox is that the truth is inconvenient for the system of empire on almost every front of the oligarchic platform. The truth is that the entire cosmos, with its trillions of galaxies in it, is electrically powered, as are the galaxies within them, including every single one of the hundreds of billions of stars in our own galaxy, such as our own sun. The masters of the world's oligarchic system, or empire as it is often called, must prevent this truth from becoming known, because if it were known, the oligarchic system could not exist. They have to shut this knowledge down for a number of reasons. One reason is that once it becomes known that our planet is afloat in a vast sea of limitless, clean electric energy that can be made accessible with the appropriate technology, not a single empire would be able to exist, because it is not possible for anyone to own what is as freely available as the air, and then demand profits from it. Another reason is that the availability of inexpensive and limitless free energy would create such a highly advanced, energy-rich civilization in the world that a feudal oligarch would have no hold on this rich wool for an oligarchy to exist. For this reason, science has become totally controlled to hide the truth that is inconvenient. And this has been successfully done. Nowhere in the world of science is the truth allowed to be entertained that the cosmic electric energy does exist. Its existence has been removed from the halls of science. All that is allowed to be considered in cosmic physics is the force of gravity interacting with mass. Nothing else is allowed. Every phenomenon has been forcibly brought down to this single denominator, the force of gravity. However, there exists one nagging aspect of scientific truth that cannot be easily ignored. This aspect is the third law of planetary motion by Johannes Kepler, discovered in the early 1600s, which applies to all gravity-forced planetary motions. It states that the ratio of the squares of the periods of revolution for different planets is equal to the ratio of the cubes of their semi-major axes. Every planet in our solar system reflects this law perfectly. Thereby, the average velocity of the innermost planet's motion is roughly 10 times faster than that of the outermost planet, with the velocity dropping off exponentially in between with increasing distance. The nagging truth is that the motions of stars in our galaxy do not reflect this principle of gravitational mechanics. a totally different speed-to-distance relationship has been observed in the galaxy, as if Kepler's law, which is universally basic to all gravity-forced mechanics, did not exist. This creates an enigma, because the stellar motions in a galaxy reflect perfectly the known dynamics of electrically forced motion in plasma. All the electric currents in plasma, especially in the spiral arms, produce rotating and twisting motions, typically with the velocity in the range of 250 kilometers per second. That is widely evident even in the solar system, such as the speed of the solar winds. While the known principles for these motions do not accord with the dogmas assigned to the decapitated physical science, all cosmic motions must be understood there as being gravity force. Since such motions would have to conform with Kepler's universal law, which they don't, and far from it, a huge and irresolvable enigma has resulted, since it is not logically possible to reconcile two opposite phenomena, like planetary motions and galactic star motions, to be resulting from the same cause. In addition, a second enigma was added, since the movement of celestial objects in space must reflect gravity-forced mechanics, as no other motivating force is allowed to be recognized. The doctrine requires that the observed movements of stars in the galaxies must be recognized as orbital motions, since this is all that gravity-forced systems can produce. Ironically, this doctrine is near universally accepted. It is the standard pablum in academics. This pablum is maintained in spite of the known facts that the force of gravity diminishes with the square of the distance, so that it is impossible to even imagine the enormous mass that would be required for a galactic source of gravity to be effective across 50,000 light years, and to keep a hold on a star moving at 250 kilometers per second at this distance. The gravity of numerous trillions of solar masses would be required to accomplish such a feat. In order to make the game possible, the theory of the supermassive black hole has been invented, similar to Ptolemy's invention of the epicycle. Black holes are deemed to be superdense neutron stars that are imagined to exist regardless of the known fact that neutrons decay into protons outside an operational atom, so that black hole neutron stars have no basis to exist, and even this causes problems. Our tiny solar system operates as well as it does because its center of gravity, our Sun, contains 99.9% of all the mass in the solar system. An equivalent ratio is impossible to imagine on the galactic scale, no matter how far the credibility is stretched. In order to force a solution to this problem, the existence of dark matter is imagined, which can neither be seen nor be experimentally detected, which is deemed to be so massive that orbiting stars in a galaxy can be recognized as a possibility. And since this isn't quite sufficient either to explain the gravitational hold on a distant star, a third set of epicycles has been invented, which is imagined as a ring of dark matter strung around the perimeter of a galaxy as a type of external attractor that is, of course, invisible too. Ptolemy's invention of the epicycle, in order to make astronomy to conform with the church doctrine at his time, that since the earth is corrupted, the heavens must be perfect, and that consequently, since the circle is a perfect geometric structure, all heavenly bodies must orbit in perfect circles. Ptolemy faced the awesome task to shape astronomy in a manner that it reflects this doctrine, which the observed evidence didn't support. Since he couldn't ignore the evidence, nor the doctrine, he came up with a solution in which he imagined the planets moving in a small circle that was itself orbiting in a path of an underlying larger circle. The planets were deemed to be moving in epicycles. And since this system didn't quite match the evidence either, he invented another fudge factor that he called the equant, which is an imaginary point in space opposite to the Earth that would give the larger circle its center halfway along the connecting line. With these astronomical fudge factors invented, a type of astronomy was created in which the observed evidence was brought into close agreement with the dogma. Ptolemy's success, however, created a tragedy for humanity. The fixing of the evidence with fudge factors delayed the discovery of the real cause for the planetary orbits for nearly 1500 years. It delayed it all the way till Kepler discovered the force of gravity and the laws of its interaction with mass. But we are not out of the woods yet on this issue. The laws that Kepler discovered are being denied again in cosmology under new doctrines, and we are back to playing the epicycles game once more. The modern doctrine decrees that all celestial motions must be seen as caused by the force of gravity, and that no other universal force is allowed to be recognized in science, so that once again layers upon layers of epicycles have mystified the domain of astrophysics that ironically is still called science. It's all done to make a doctrine seem plausible, and with the same consequence that the decapitation of science with forced mysticism delays the recognition of the real principles operating in the universe. It shouldn't surprise anyone that this is so. If the astrophysical reality was allowed to be known, it would be known and acknowledged that our planet is afloat in a sea of cosmic electric energy that encircles our planet in the form of two wide bands, with such electric current intensity that they can be detected from space as they indeed have been detected. And their power potential is great enough to power the gigantic tropical hurricanes. What we see here is a universal cosmic electric phenomenon. We even see it on the sun. We see in principle the same two electric current bands encircling the sun that we have been seeing encircling the Earth. They are plainly visible in UV and X-ray photography. All the sunspots occur in the regions of these electric plasma current bands. The bands are always evident, though their position shifts slightly over the solar cycle. The sunspots occur within both bands, north and south from the solar equator, up to typically the 30-degree latitudes, and on rare occasions as far as the 45-degree latitude. The sun and the Earth, as you can see yourself, reflect a common electrodynamics principle. The evidence speaks to us of an electrically powered solar system and galaxy and universe. It is the task of decapitated science to prevent this evidence from becoming recognized for what it is, in order that the cosmos remains shrouded with science mythologies and layers upon layers of epicycles of all sorts that are defended against all logic, to protect the oligarchic system. Truth is self-evident. The evidence is seen clearly in the sunspots, that the sun is not a nuclear fusion furnace. If the sun was a nuclear fusion furnace, the deeper layers below the photosphere would be brighter instead of being darker, as all the sunspots are. Sunspots result when overloaded electric current streams rupture and their energy explodes into space, ripping a hole in the photosphere in the process. The familiar immense looping prominences on the sun are evidence of large electric currents flowing at the surface of the sun, which beyond a certain threshold become lifted above the solar surface. The high-powered loops of electric currents in plasma are natural phenomena that are far more easily produced than prevented, as electrical engineers have discovered. The familiar solar provinces that are often referred to as magnetic loop phenomena are evidently magnetically aligned, fractal-looped electric current structures of the type we see occurring on Earth when a dampening device fails in the switchyards of high-voltage transmission lines, such as in the case shown at the 500 kilovolt El Dorado substation near Boulder City, Nevada. By its numerous phenomena that are typical for electric currents flowing in plasma, the sun readily reveals itself as being electrically powered at its outermost layer. All magnetic phenomena are the result of electric currents flowing. No other principle for magnetic phenomena exists than the movement of electric currents. The sun is a vast sea of electric current streams in motion. The electricity for this immense theater of flowing currents is drawn from space by the sun's force of gravity acting on plasma. Plasma is the lifeblood of the universe, consisting primarily of protons and electrons, which are the subatomic building blocks that all of the atoms in the universe are made of, and which carry an electric charge. Protons that carry a positive charge are 100,000 times smaller than the smallest atom, but they have the same mass of an atom. By this mass, they are gravitationally attracted. Electrons carry a negative charge, but are 1,000 times smaller again. However, they too have mass, by which they are gravitationally attracted. Thus, the sun becomes drenched by immense showers of plasma particles that interact with each other electrically in a fiery dance that lights up the solar system. The evidence that the fiery dance on the sun is electric in nature is seen also in the surroundings of the sun. Nothing but the electric force has the power to accelerate the solar wind and also the coronal mass injections to typically 800 kilometers per second as they flow away from the sun, and to heat them up to 1,000 times hotter than the sun is itself. If the truth ever became acknowledged that cosmic space is teeming with plasma electric energy on such an immense scale that it powers every sun, which also surrounds the Earth and is attracted to it thereby, and becomes accessible to humanity, the recognition of this anti-entropic energy source in nature would disable the empires of oligarchy and usher in an endless renaissance. Oligarchic doctrines demand science to invent epic cycles that block the recognition of all aspects of universal truths that are dangerous to the mythical structures of empire and their very existence. However, by yielding to this doctrine, society disables itself and threatens its own existence. We cannot afford to do this, because the sunspots tell us of critical times ahead. What do the sunspots tell us when we see a darker surface beneath the holes in the photosphere? Measurements of the darkness of the spots speak of a sun that is 30 to 50% colder on the inside. If the sun was constant, this differential could not exist. It tells us that for long periods the sun was colder, so that its current high temperature is just a short-term anomaly of the interglacial pulse. All this tells us that when the present high-energy interglacial pulse ends, the sun will revert back to its colder state, and our planet visit to its normal glaciation conditions. As a consequence of the colder world, with massively increased glaciation, humanity will require a substantial increase in energy use in order to maintain its existence. With the world's presently utilized energy resources being entropic in nature and already getting thin, the recognition and the development of the readily available cosmic electric energy resource, which is inherently anti-entropic in nature, as is the universe itself, is humanity's only available platform for the long-term survival of its civilization and its own survival with it, beginning with the coming Ice Age transition. The increasing challenge requires a corresponding high-powered renaissance, and this requires that the cries of empire against any form of renaissance development be damned. In astrophysics, the modern layers upon layers of epicycles involve mystic imagined physical phenomena of a type that no one can see or experimentally detect, such as black holes, which are invisible in the black of the universe. These epicycles are all required to keep the truth under wraps that cosmic space is filled with electric plasma and thereby with electric energy that powers every sun. The spinners of the convoluted dream that hides the truth have gone to great lengths to keep the dream alive. One aspect of this dreaming is the so-called density wave theory. Since in an orbital star system every galaxy would have lost its well-defined spiral structure, the theory has been invented that the spiral appearance merely reflects a pattern of stars bunching up in wave-like patterns in certain places as they orbit the galactic center. It is theorized that the waves of congestion of the orbital stars creates the illusion of the existence of a spiral structure, which according to the theory doesn't really exist. This illusion is politically useful for the masters of empire for the purpose of spinning a web of apocalyptic terror tales around the mysticism behind the illusion. Apocalyptic terror disables rational perception. It dulls the mind. There is a lot of that going on all over the place. For example, there is widespread talk going on about the solar system being subjected to a galactic crisis, as it is deemed to be orbiting into another arm of the galaxy that is more dense and prone to apocalyptic cataclysm. All kinds of terror has been drawn into this totally unfounded mysticism. We are said to be near another mass extinction cycle as the result of this mystic phenomenon. 5 mass extinction events are known to have occurred during the last 450 million years. We are said to be facing another one right now, as the result of the solar system orbiting into another density arm of the galaxy. In addition to the density wave epicycle, still another epicycle is being imagined as an orbital phenomenon. This one has the solar system bobbing up and down the galactic ecliptic, becoming thereby exposed to increased cosmic ray density on the side of the galaxy facing the Virgo supercluster of galaxies. The 62 million year cycle of historic climate changes is blamed on this imagined bobbing motions epicycle, which is also said to be the cause for all the 5 big mass extinction events in history over the last 500 million years. Of course, the bobbing epicycle is imagined in such a way that we face another imminent apocalyptic extinction event in our time. Unfortunately, the imagined epicycles, which have nothing real standing behind them, do have a truly tragic element associated with them, which in contrast with the epicycles is totally real. The tragic element is that the epicycles hide the actually operating principles and prevent humanity from responding to their effects. Ptolemy's epicycles had ruled astronomy for 15 centuries, till Kepler corrected the underlying error. Today's world is tragically stuck in a similar manner. Galactic mysticism is blamed for the natural effects that result from the decreased electric density in the solar system that NASA's Ulysses satellite had measured from 1998 on, in the form of reduced solar wind pressure, magnetic field strength, and increased cosmic radiation, till its mission was terminated in 2009. Galactic mysticism is blamed for the natural effects that result from the decreased electric density in the solar system that NASA's Ulysses satellite had measured from 1998 on, in the form of reduced solar wind pressure, magnetic field strength, and increased cosmic radiation, till its mission was terminated in 2009. On a larger scale of plasma physics, we see similar resonating cycles in the form of pulsed interglacial cycles on the 100,000-year time frame. Neither of the two are mechanistic in nature. Both are caused by electrodynamic effects. Also, considering that the electromagnetic force is one of the strongest forces in the universe, major electric intensity variations are bound to have major physical effects on the Earth, like an increase in earthquakes. We have seen a 15-fold increase in earthquakes beginning in late 1999, coincident with the reduced power density in the heliosphere that Ulysses had measured. The Earth responded to the changing electrodynamics with a major increase in earthquakes. The evidence is plain and reflects simple known principles. No imaginary tales are needed to explain the increased earthquakes, such as with the mysticism of the solar system bobbing up and down across the galactic ecliptic, for which no principle exists to cause such an action in the first place, when the earthquake increase is time synchronized with Ulysses' observed and measured electrodynamics phenomena. These imagined mystic tales are put forward by numerous reputable institutions, including universities, even the recent increase in earthquakes, and of course also the weather becoming unstable, is now blamed to be the result of the so-called galactic crisis. It all used to be blamed on global warming. By some institutions, it still is. The scientific blindness that the decapitation of science has imposed on the oligarchy doctrine has essentially closed the door on the recognition of the principles that caused the Ice Age cycles. In the shadow of this blocked recognition, the world has been induced to dream the mythical dream of an endless interglacial period, overshadowed by global warming instead of another ice age. Naturally, what is happening here, such as the decapitation of science and the imprisonment of society with apocalyptic theories, is fully intentional. The evident intention is to keep the truth hidden from humanity, which thereby prevents the recognition of the principles that stand behind the impending return of the Ice Age glaciation, that are fully evident as recognizable Ice Age precursors. The recognition of precursors is not difficult on the science platform of electrodynamics. It appears to be for this reason that the entire scene of cosmic electric dynamics is universally blocked. The long-stated political goal of the masters of empire, and this has been said many times and in many ways, is to create the conditions that forces the mass depopulation of the planet from 7 billion to less than 1. The more proper term for the intention of eradicating 6 billion people by acts of policy is genocide. The return of the Ice Age has evidently been chosen for the fulfillment of this mad intention, as the science has been blocked by which it would have been recognized. The genocide of 6 billion people would likely result if the Ice Age transition begins and the preparation for it have been successfully prevented. The future existence of civilization and much of humanity with it depends on society's determination to rescue its science and with it its freedom from the chokehold of the masters of empire. Humanity stood under the thumb of empire for roughly 5,000 years. Vast massacres and policies of genocide have been inflicted on humanity over the span of this time, with ever-increasing consequences that can no longer be tolerated, such as looting that has destroyed the world economy and nuclear war that is on the horizon again. Ironically, humanity is raising hardly a finger to end the rule of empire and thereby prevent its doom. A stronger call to action for humanity gaining its freedom would be the universal recognition of the Ice Age challenge that stands now before us, which, if it were responded to, would create a new dynamic renaissance in science, economics, and social living, so that the very systems of empire would fall by the wayside as the reclaimed freedom of humanity would be its own driver for building a world in which we all have a future once more. The future, unfortunately, is not guaranteed. Civilization isn't handed to humanity on a silver platter. It is a construct created by humanity itself that needs to be advanced and needs to be protected as we grow up in building our civilization. This dynamic process of endless building and creating is not as simple as it appears to be, but it is necessary. And the greatest danger that we face on the front of living is that we keep our focus too narrow and our vision too small, because then we will surely die. Nothing is static in the universe. The concept of static life is absurd, and so is the concept of a static civilization. Life is unfolding, progressive, and equally dynamic and progressive is the principle of economics and the principle of civilization. We have all the resources on hand in terms of materials and energy to redirect the outflow of the Amazon and Congo rivers to bring water to the Sahara Desert and create an oasis. It is easily done, with basalt reshaped into infrastructures in high-temperature automated industrial processes powered with thorium fission. The materials and energy are available in great abundance, and the technology to use them has been sitting on the shelf for 50 years. We don't need technological breakthroughs to change the world. We only need a massive increase in energy density on the front of our own self-discovery as human beings. This is the process that Kepler had pioneered for us. He discovered his humanity. He threw away the epicycles that had chained astronomy for almost 2,000 years, even past Ptolemy, possibly as far as Aristotle. That is where Kepler's greatest accomplishment is located. He demonstrated, with his discovery of the real principle of planetary motion, reversing all doctrines, what it means to be a human being. And his accomplishment appears to have had a greater effect than we yet imagine. A mere 18 years after Kepler's death, the greatest peace treaty in the history of civilization was enacted that had ended a century of war and left no one vanquished, which still stands as a foundation for modern civilization, precariously as this may be at the moment. Meeting the Ice Age challenge with food, energy, and materials aplenty for 10 billion people is not so much a technological task, which is easily accomplished, than it is an opportunity to become alive with the greatest industrial revolution the world has ever seen. We will see the Sahara in bloom, and free housing spread across the world, such as in floating cities to house the new breed of farmers, to service the floating agriculture for an unlimited future, for an unlimited mankind. This is not utopia. This is the potential we have today, as we lay aside the epicycles that choke our science, our economies, and our humanity.